Marcus Carlson. Marcus, the market's watching the new lineup in France.
They are indeed. Hi there, Francois. Hi there, everyone. We're going to start the business update with the duo that's been put in charge of the French economy. Pierre Moscovici got the sack as finance minister earlier when the government reshuffle was outlined. That job was given to Michel Sapin, to your right instead, a close ally of President Hollande. He'll be working with Arnaud Montebourg, to your left here, who was named economy minister. Montebourg raised eyebrows in the last French government. He threatened to nationalize the French assets of a foreign steel firm, among other things. For more now on this duo, we can turn to Antonio Barroso from the risk consulting firm Teneo Intelligence. He's with us live from London. Thank you very much indeed, Antonio, for speaking to us. Now, Arnaud Montebourg is seen as a pretty controversial character. It almost feels like an understatement to say that. Will that worry investors, his appointment as economy minister?
I think it's a little bit surprising for investors given the well-known stance of Montebourg, negative stance, I would say, towards foreign companies and his criticism towards Brussels. I still think it's not going to be an issue. I think from the point of view of coordination, obviously the cacophony between the finance minister, Michel Sapin, the new finance minister, and Montebourg could be a problem. But at the end of the day, I think that Manuel Valls is going to be the one calling the shots. And that will probably fix the coordination issues between the two new finance minister and economy minister.
So you're saying that even though we may have these two names in the economy ministry, Michel Sapin and Arnaud Montebourg, you're not expecting a real break from the former policy, so to speak, of the French government?
Exactly. I expect a lot of continuity. Let's look, for example, at what are the main initiatives from the point of view of policy that François Hollande wants to implement in the coming months. One is fiscal consolidation, and for that he has appointed a close friend, Michel Sapin, someone that can actually speak for him in Brussels and try to enforce fiscal consolidation. And then the other important initiative is the Responsibility Pact, which falls under the competence of the Labour Ministry, which is going to be dealt by the new Labour Minister. So I think that obviously Montebourg will still have an impact in certain policy dossiers, but the most important policy dossiers are not going to be managed by him.
They're going to be managed by the Prime Minister, Manuel Valls, and Michel Sapin. That's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Now, what do you think the main priorities are going to be for these two men now, Arnaud Montebourg and Michel Sapin, looking ahead? What do they need to look at first? What should be at the top of their in tray?
Well, I think first, deliver on the commitments vis-à-vis Brussels in terms of fiscal consolidation. Let's keep in mind that at the end of the day, François Hollande has in mind that he has to maintain credibility vis-à-vis markets. So from the point of view of fiscal consolidation, I think Michel Sapin has an important job to deliver. And then the second front is essentially jobs. But again, this is something that is not going to come immediately. As you know, the main initiative from the point of view of Hollande, as I mentioned, is the Responsibility Pact. It's going to take a long time to basically negotiate this pact with employers and with trade unions, and then to implement it. Actually, the government is now looking at presenting something in mid-April and then developing in the coming months. So it's going to take some time to implement these initiatives.
Now, if we take a step back and look at the image that France has in the investment community and in global markets now, it's been questioned for a while now, and the statements that we've heard from Arnaud Montebourg has been one factor in that. How strong do you think that France's investment image is at this stage? Is it compromised or is it fairly okay?
I think it's fairly okay, because if you look, the last episode of, so to speak, market crisis that we had was in 2011. Since then, the fact that, a lot of people were scared about Hollande, but then he showed actually that, he was the first socialist president essentially to try to deliver on fiscal consolidation. I think that's very important for markets. And when you look at the yields, they remain fairly low. Also, obviously, there is basically one factor to take into account, which is essentially the action and the words of Mario Draghi and the ECB. But overall, I think François Hollande has managed to essentially maintain certain market credibility in the course of the last 2 years, despite the statements by Arnaud Montebourg.
Okay, Antonio Barroso from Teneo Intelligence with us there from London. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us this Wednesday. We're going to take a look at the stock markets next. In the United States, we are seeing the indices trading higher this hour on signs of a pickup in the U.S. economy. As you can see there, the S&P 500 up by around about 0.25%. It follows a report from payrolls firm ADP, which show that the U.S. private sector added 191,000 jobs in March. That was seen as a pretty good figure. Now, those hopes for the U.S. economy also spread to Europe on Wednesday. This side of the Atlantic, the markets also closed in positive territory, only barely, though, when we look at the Paris CAC 40 as well as the London FTSE up 0.1%. Let's just talk you through quickly a few other stories that we're following for you. There's a little sign that the biggest strike in the history of the German airline Lufthansa will end early. This as the company's management says there'll be no further talks while the strike continues. Pilots are staging a 3-day walkout to protest against plans to scrap an early retirement scheme. Lufthansa has already been forced to ground hundreds of flights and it expects 3,800 cancellations altogether through Friday. The global recovery remains too slow and it's still facing multiple threats. That's according to the head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde. She was speaking in Washington a little earlier. She says the standoff over Ukraine is one of the risks facing the global economy. She also called on the European Central Bank to take action to stimulate the Eurozone economy. That's ahead of an ECB meeting on Thursday in Frankfurt. And the European Commission is punishing Goldman Sachs and the world's top makers of high-voltage cables. The Commission says the American bank and 8 Asian and European companies ran a cartel for almost 10 years. The aim had been to divide the market between them. Altogether, they are now being ordered to pay 302 million euros. I'll be back again in around about an hour and a half with more business headlines. For now, though, it is back to François.